You're going around your plants, checking up on them, and you notice a few plants look really sad, and you're posing the question to yourself, what the hell is wrong with you? This has caused you to go on a full-on spiral panic mode to figure out what is wrong with your plants and how do you fix it. In today's video, I'm going to talk to you about how you can actually identify these problems and the way plants can communicate through their leaves the signals of what is going wrong. Hi everybody, Alina here, welcome, I hope you're well. Let's get straight into it. I'm going to talk you through one by one each plant signal that it throws through its leaves, what it means and what you can do to fix it. We're going to start with underwatering. Now there's a few signs that your plant can do when they are feeling very thirsty. One could be a really dramatic display of the leaves flopping. For example, peace lilies are very good demonstrators of this. They will flop and hang over their pot, look very limp, almost like they are dead, but in matter of fact they're just so thirsty that they need a drink. A good indication of underwatering cacti and succulent type of plants with thicker, juicier leaves, is that these leaves will start to crinkle, look like a prune or a raisin, whatever you fancy. And that's because the water is stored in the leaves. So as the water depletes, their leaves will kind of crinkle up inside as well. Another sign of your plant being underwatered is that the bottom leaves of your plant will dry up and crinkle and go brown. They become almost like a crisp. Another example of a really underwater plant could be brown spots on your leaves, but these brown spots are actually really crispy. There's a key theme here of the word crispy with your leaves, and that's because there's no water in your leaves to stay hydrated, so they're really dehydrated and becoming these crisp essentially. An easy fix for all of this underwatering is probably just down to your watering and your watering schedule. I'm a very big advocate for the baking a cake method and sticking a stick or a finger into your plant as far as you can go, pulling it out, seeing if it's covered in dirt or not covered. If it's not covered in dirt, you what? You water. If it is covered in dirt, you don't water. Keeping an eye on your plants this way will help you know if your plants are thirsty or not. Now, on the other end of the spectrum of this is too much water, and your leaves can display too much water through your plant being very slightly limp. It's not going to be as dramatically limp as a very thirsty peace lily. Also, some of your leaves could just turn yellow and just fall off. Let's fix this issue. So the first thing you're going to do is see how soggy its bottom is. If the soil is soaking wet and dripping out water, what I want you to do to this plant is take it out of the soil, leave your plant out of soil for a couple hours just so the poor plant can just dry. Once it has dried, I want you to repot your plant into new soil that is dry. Once you have repotted your plant, give it a couple of days to settle. Then I want you to give it a light drink. Wait for that to dry out, then continue your usual watering using the underwatering method to test when you need to water. If your plant doesn't have a dramatically soggy bottom but is showing signs of overwatering, just let your plant dry out completely. Give it a few days once it has dried out, and then restart this watering schedule. As I say many times in many videos, is that it's easier to recover a plant from being underwatered than overwatering, as root rot can take place when you start to overwater your plants. If you have occurred root rot during this process and your plant still feels firm and feels alive, there's no sogginess or rotting on the actual plant itself and just the roots, you can trim off all of these roots, leave your plant out of a pot, out of soil to dry for a few hours, and then pop it back in a pot with that new soil. Now we're going to jump onto too much light for your plants, and a way your plant can show that it is experiencing too much light is by burnt crispy patches on your leaves. Let's fix this issue, and it's kind of a straightforward issue, and that is moving your plant away from the light. It's probably experiencing direct light. If your plant is seeing the sun when you look out the window, that plant is experiencing direct light. So what we want to do is move it out the window so it can only see the sun for like half a day for a quarter of the day, just moving it that little bit away from the window. You are moving your plant into the more moderate light area. Now we're moving on to too little light. Signs of your plant experiencing too little light is it might start to go elongated, it might fade in colour, become more pale, it might start shedding these leaves randomly, and the new growth may become limp. Now, an easy way to fix too little light is probably a very simple fix, and that is moving your plant closer to a light source. If your plant can't see the nice sky and it's not experiencing seeing any sun for at least a quarter to half a day, it's probably experiencing too little light. The other fix of this is investing in grow lights. I know this can be expensive for some people, but grow lights are a really great way of ensuring that you're not going to tolerate uncertain light conditions and you're not going to be worried about it all the time. Another plant issue you might come across is your plant being root bounded. And the way your plant will show that it's root bounded is that newer growth will start to appear stunted. Typically, you will see your plant sizing up as your leaf grows and each new leaf becomes bigger than the last. If you start to see that your plant's new leaves are smaller than the previous leaf, then this could mean that your plant is root bounded. I'm going to make a small exception here, is that during winter and colder periods, your plant can experience stunted growth just because it doesn't have as much energy to keep producing new growth as well as it would do in the spring and summertime. Another way to check this is to take your plant out the pot and to see if roots are really covering all the way around and it's kind of formed its own shape as a pot. Or if you pick up your plant and you see lots and lots of roots pouring out of the holes out of your nursery pot, and this could be a really good sign of your plant being root bounded. Now we're going to fix this by repotting your plant. It is something that every plant parent is going to experience and will need to do for their plants in order to keep them growing lush and healthy. When you're repotting, you're going to be scaling up the pot. You want to jump up sizes from 3 centimeters or wider. So for example, if you're going from a 12 centimeter pot, the next pot should be a 15 centimeter pot. Doesn't mean to say you can't jump up to a bigger pot. The only thing with jumping to a much bigger pot is that you're at risk of overwatering. But if you keep to the baker cake method, then you'll be fine and you know when to water your plants. Other than that, there's nothing wrong with jumping up from a 12 centimeter pot to a 20 centimeter pot, for example. So now we're going to kind of move on to some pests, the signs that your plants can give when they are being attacked by these pesky pests. We are going to start with thrips, which is the pest I hate the most and the most difficult pest to destroy or get rid of in my experience for your houseplants. A sign of thrips would be that your plant has silvery trails, almost like a slug trail, but really thin and small, left by the thrips. You will also see tiny black dots, which is their poop. This is typically on the underside of your leaf, but can be on the top side. You may see some of your plant's newer growth be stunted or growing really awkwardly. This is because thrips really like to feed off new growth. You would typically see a lot more thrips on newer growth compared to older leaves. Now, to fix this issue, it probably would mean I would have to create a whole new video, which I could do in the future. If you want that, let me down below. But quick general guide into tackling thrips is looking at their 3 main points of their life cycles. So you have the larvae, you have the pupae, and then you have the adult. The larvae are on their leaves and then they will turn into their second stage, the pupae. Once the pupae has hit their end of that cycle, they will go down to the soil and turn into the adult, which is their third stage. And then from there, they'll fly off and fly to another plant to reproduce, and the cycle continues. So the first thing you're going to want to do, thoroughly check all of your plants, not just the one, all of them, and you want to check every nook and cranny, all of the new growth as thoroughly as you can. Any plants that you have found have been affected, you're going to want to chuck them in a shower as quickly as possible. Hose them down with a good hose, not a gentle trickle, I mean a really good pressure hose your plant with horticultural soap or spray down with an SB invigorator. You can then introduce predatory mites that can tackle the thrips on the leaves and the thrips in the soil. For example, I always have Ambalycis in these sachets, and I get them on a monthly scale to put on my plants and to ensure thrips are kept at bay. Next pest I'm going to jump on to talk about is aphids. So a sign your plant has aphids is new growth can be stunted and grown awkwardly, kind of like a thrip. And aphids are luckily a little bit more obvious than a thrip, and you will be able to see new growth covered in either black or green, circular, juicy looking insects. How we're going to fix this is a very similar method to thrips. Get that in the shower, because a really good hose down with a good pressure shower is a great way of getting these aphids off your plants as they can't hold on. Then again, you want to check all over your plant, clean it down with a horticultural soap or spray it down with an SB invigorator. There are predatory mites that you can get for aphids. I am testing all of these out myself because I haven't had much experience. I refuse to get ladybirds because I don't want ladybirds in my house. Also, if you're feeling up for it, as soon as you see an aphid, squish that little bugger, gone. Same with thrips, get them, squish them, gone. Let's move on to another really common plant pest, which is spider mites. And your plant can show spider mites by, again, stunted or awkward new growth. And another sign would be this silvery fine webbing across your plant. Again, they kind of target your newer growth, but they can go more so all over your plant in comparison to aphids or thrips. How we're going to fix this problem, I think you can see a common theme here with my approach to tackling pests, and is that you get your plant in that shower and you hose it down. With spider mites, touch wood, hosing down my plants has been enough to get rid of all of the spider mites. As long as you're keeping on top of that, giving them a good clean with horticultural soap, I personally don't see a repeat offence of spider mites coming back to my plants from this one. Now, what I will say with all of these pesty problems, if your plant isn't valuable to you and is easy to replace, then I would just strongly advise to cut your losses and throw that sucker in the bin. That seems really harsh, but sometimes you gotta make these sacrifices to save the rest of your plant collection, because believe me, if you waste your time trying to defend this one plant that is infested, it's gonna spread to all of your other plants, and then you're pretty buggered from there. I'm going to jump through the last few plant issues that you could come across. So let's start with low humidity. If your plant is suffering with low humidity, a good telltale sign of this is that the tips of your plants are going to be brown, and it's going to be on multiple leaves, not just on one leaf. How we fix low humidity is by increasing the humidity. And how we can increase the humidity is investing in a good humidifier. Do not, and I mean do not, spray your plants, because that doesn't do anything to increase humidity. Now we're going to talk about hard water. Now, if you're constantly watering your plant with your tap water, your plants might start to show signs of it not enjoying this watering. And that is the edges and the tips of your leaves are going to be brown. Now, to fix this issue, there's a few things you can do. You can start collecting rainwater. This is a really good practice if you can do so. I know a lot of people live in flats like me and you don't have access to an outdoor garden space, so you can't have a water butt. If you're in that position, another really easy way to fix this is going to the fish shop, aquatic store, and picking yourself up some tap safe or dechlorinator. A few drops of this into your watering can before you water any of your plants will take away those nasty chemicals that can come out of your tap. A last planty problem you may find is age. When I say this, it's because sometimes I have people asking me like, why is the bottom leaf of my plant going yellow, and it's just this one leaf. This is just a sign of age. As your plants grow older, they will typically drop off lower leaves. It will be dropping these leaves in quite a slow rate. It's a very gradual process that your plant will do in aging, and this is just a natural life cycle. So there isn't a way to fix this, as this is because this is just what your plant will do. The only kind of fix to this is that you can just chop these leaves off, and then your plant doesn't have to put the energy into those dying leaves, and it can put its energy into newer leaves. So now you are a fully qualified plant doctor. You can go on looking after your plants and knowing these telltale signs of any plant issues that you come across in your plants and how you can fix them before you go on a massive anxiety depressive spiral thinking that you're not a good plant parent. And that is all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. So goodbye, me lovers. Bye.